Well, hi everyone. My name is Cuthbert, and thanks again, Liz and Gayatri, for having me over. It's certainly an honor because, being a student at York and now having an opportunity to come back and tell everyone my story is really nice, and maybe someday you'll be able to do the same as well. I work as a project and portfolio slash program manager at KPMG. And basically, I oversee the Latin Americas and the North American portfolio for technology projects. So a lot of my work involves working with C-level executives and looking at risks and evaluating any change management processes in the organization. And basically, I was hired because there was no structure, and I had to put together a process, governance, and change management and risk management in the company, or at least in the Latin Americas region. Some of the things I like really about the role is it's heavily reliant on communications, and if anyone has spoken to a project manager, they will always tell you that the key ingredient is communications, and a lot of projects fail because of bad communications. So that's one aspect I always look to improve in every project, every team I work with, and every member I interface with, even if it's on a one-on-one basis. And so I'm happy to be part of this, and if you have any questions, please feel free to answer. I think it's a really good opportunity, and it's a good-sized group as well. So yeah, without further ado, thanks everyone, and all the best. Thank you.
So I'm Dilshan, and I'm the CTO for a small public digital marketing company. It's based out of Toronto. We specialize in building out profiles for different people. So a little bit of scary stuff that people are talking about right now. Looking at different data sets, whether it's online behavior, whether it's looking at mobile behavior, whether it's interactive TVs or smart TVs, and social media as well, and then trying to understand how to get relevant advertising in front of people. The challenges around that are primarily understanding what advertisers want, and that keeps shifting, and also managing the concerns around privacy and different regulatory requirements around that. My primary role within the company is to drive the technology, define the product, make sure everything gets built out. So I manage a team of developers, and also an extended role where I manage operational capability of the organization as well. So being in a C-level role in a public company, you also learn a lot more bureaucracy that you have to work around. So that was an interesting aspect of my day-to-day, and relatively new one, because I've worked in private companies up until about a year ago. So I'm also in a sort of a learning curve on how to be part of a C-level of a public company. So yeah, like everyone before me, just ask any questions and I'll be happy to answer it in some context. Hopefully that's useful to you.
Thank you.
It's very easy to say that you're in computer science, you probably do a lot of programming courses, but maybe you're not getting a chance to work on your soft skills, like your communications, your ability to listen, and ability to speak or manage a project. Because I remember when I was in computer science and doing a lot of courses, no one wanted to do the planning, no one wanted to do the coordination. They just wanted to go gung-ho, gangbusters, let's code, and there was no coordination. But in the real world, you need that. And that's something that you can learn post-university. Maybe there are opportunities in the university to harness that skill set, work on your communication, work on your listening skills. I think that's really important. Take advice, take feedback, and have an action plan as well. Have a SMART goal and work towards it. And if you need any mentorship, there are people readily available to mentor people for free and provide you with direction, provide you with what your strengths and weaknesses are, and to work on them. And I guess I'm still a work in progress. I wouldn't say that I'm a finished product, but I'm continuing to learn, and I've learned along the way, and I've always used those tools to enable me to continually grow, and it applies to you as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So my story starts when I'm 15. I started my first company when I was 15, and I was in Sri Lanka. The problem that I was trying to solve was I'd seen the amazing trajectory that Jeff Bezos and Amazon had been on, and they were growing, and you could see where electronic commerce was going, and wanted to get the same thing done, but I'm in Sri Lanka, so decided, hey, I'll build it anyway. I didn't know how to code, I didn't know how to build anything out, but I understood the organizational structure and what was required at the component level. So I had two companies, two separate sets of developers, mixed up what I was trying to build, and got two companies to build the individual components, and I learned just enough to put everything together. So that individually they didn't have anything, but together I had a product. The second part of the problem was we didn't have a payment infrastructure. So that was a very fun journey of walking into banks when you're 15 and trying to convince managing directors of banks saying, hey, there's this electronic commerce thing coming and you should probably invest in a payment gateway. For whatever reason, they kind of took a bet on me, and we built out a payment gateway infrastructure for the electronic store that was supposedly the first in the country. Built that out, and then once we were hitting sort of maturity, it was time for me to go to university. I was done with high school, and then I came to York as an international student. While at York, I'd sort of wrapped everything up with my initial venture. At York, maybe about second year, I decided to start a company here. So I found amazing people here, and we started a company in mobile advertising. So things hadn't really started moving. The iPhone hadn't come out yet at this point. But we took a big bet on serving ads to J2ME Java phones, so very early stage phones that you had flip phones. Not the greatest idea, but we learned enough that by the time the iPhone came out and then the Android, we were the market leaders, and we'd gone to advertising agencies in Toronto and other parts of North America, and then convinced these people that something amazing was coming. So when everyone started wondering how to get advertising onto mobile phones, there were these random guys who came a long time ago and started talking about mobile advertising. So everyone kind of joined up with us. So by the time I graduated from York, we had grown to a company of about 20 people. So that was like an amazing journey of trying to build a company and then also go to school at the same time and also be international students. So that was pretty interesting. After York, after graduating, I ran the company for a little bit of time, but we'd grown sufficiently that I felt it was time that I take on a different challenge. So I sold that company, so that was the first formal company that I've sort of grown to scale and sold. And the second challenge that I wanted to take on was in the public sector, so that was an interesting challenge. And my present employment is with a Toronto-based public company that's trying to do something similar, but obviously at a much larger scale. So that's been an interesting journey as well. So that's pretty much where I'm at right now.
Okay, all right.
Did it happen to you? How did you do it?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I think there are various points that you question if you've made the right decision, and I think I felt the same thing as probably most of you do. But I think it's very important to have that support structure. So if there are people alongside who are supporting you and helping you along, and having that reassurance, and making sure that you're doing the right thing, there is nothing wrong in making a mistake or having hesitation. I think the core idea is to make sure that you feel that it's the right thing to do. And many people think that computer science is just limited to a certain area, a certain horizon, but you can go in any direction you want to. Dilshan here is the CTO. I'm doing project management, portfolio management. If you'd asked me 10 years ago if I would be doing this, I would have said probably not. But it's a journey, and there are various roles. It really is dependent on what you really want to do. And it's sometimes a journey. It's discovering things along the way. And speaking to as many people as you can, having a panel like this is really a useful medium to have those questions answered. Because there could be someone who's feeling the same hesitation or things as you are, and they may have gone through similar things. So maybe I'll ask you a question. If there is a hesitation in your mind, is this something that is lingering around which field you want to go to? And if so, are there alternate fields that you're thinking of? Or maybe you could elaborate. and everyone in your position probably feels the same way. I think the important thing is to kind of network. That's number one thing, but also to not limit yourself to opportunities. So, you know, if there is an avenue, even if it's graphic design, for example, or doing something on the side along with your degree, then by all means go for it. A computer science degree doesn't mean that you're going to be in a certain area. It could mean that you take on different certifications later on to be more specialized in an area that you would like to be a part of. And I'm sure, Dilshan, along the way, there have been other opportunities where you've looked to grow and enhance your tool belt.
Yeah, so even though I would have gone through, say, computer science at York, my day-to-day is far more broader than that. Every now and then I do have to specialize in what I know really well. But like, for instance, in my team of developers, one of them is a nano fabrication specialist who pivoted from getting his PhD in nano fabrication to now being a developer. So he's working alongside other people, and he's made that decision because he found that the challenges that he found in, say, computer science more challenging or more applicable to from a career point of view, right? So you will always pivot. The good thing about computer science, I would say, is that you have that ability to pivot because a lot of different businesses, a lot of different industries are adopting computer science, and they're also adopting it at the business process level. So you could go into, say, finance, and there's a lot of opportunities there. You could go into any of the standard businesses, and there's room for you to apply, say, knowledge from computer science, but maybe not in the same way that you'd imagine a computer programmer would in that capacity, right? So it's more fundamental knowledge than anything else right now. And what your job is at the end of the day may be different from what the typical pathway for someone in computer science may be.
So yeah, so when you're graduating, you're armed with this degree, you think that, yeah, you can do anything, and it's certainly an avenue to landing a job, but you have to continuously grow or find something that suits your position, and there are aspects of a job that might require certain certifications. Just to your point about finance certifications, no, I don't, but it's something that I'm looking to enhance my skill set with. But along the way, I had to do certain certifications like the PMP and risk management and things like that, which kind of is a differentiator from other candidates. So the more certifications you have which are relevant to the position, it just gives you that much more breadth of opportunities to which you can apply. And you know, it's also a network. When you are in your network, then someone can easily refer you. So I would say, yeah, try to do certifications, but not the whole gamut. I know people who have done like 50 certifications, probably not relevant to their field, but try to have an action plan of what you exactly want to do. Look at job descriptions, because they generally are the first point at which you could kind of structure your goals or the list of certifications that you would like to have in the next 24 months. And build from there and reevaluate on a yearly basis or a 6-month basis if that works for you.
Dilshan, any financial training? Did you do any?
No, I actually don't, but I do work very closely with, I used to work very closely with a lot of venture capitalists and gone through a couple of rounds of raising money and that kind of stuff. And I would have preferred to have some knowledge in that before I got into that.
Well, you sometimes learn on the job as well, so
yes, for sure.
It's fine.
Yes.
Is there any venture capital floating around now?
In Toronto, yes, for sure. I would say it's probably an amazing time to start a company in Toronto. There's a couple of amazing VC firms that are investing more liberally than they used to. There's also a lot of angels who understand the market, and Toronto has also been extremely fortunate in having successful companies come out over, say, the last 5 to 6 years. And those founders who have made some money are now in the Toronto circles looking at funding other entrepreneurs, right? So I think if you look at Silicon Valley, why that really works well is a lot of people made a lot of good money in the 70s and they invested in people who made a lot of money in the 80s, and then it's sort of like a domino effect, right? So Toronto just started getting into it in the early 2000s. Unfortunately, hit the dot-com bubble, and now people have they were very risk averse for a while, and now over the last 5-6 years, venture capitalists took a bet. A lot of companies succeeded. A lot of companies got actually bought out by Google and whatnot. So a lot of people made money, and now you have those same people coming back into the marketplace and investing heavily. Yeah.
Avenue of getting funding?
Yeah, for sure. In my day-to-day, even though I'm not actively raising money, I do connect with a lot of VCs, or they just float me a question saying, hey, what do you think about this company? Because no one in a VC environment would invest in a company based on their personal opinion. They obviously want other people's take on that company. So I do end up seeing a lot of people right out of college, or even some interesting startups that are also in college right now, or in school right now. And some of them are quite exciting, they're innovative. From raising money point of view, it is all about networking. You cannot write an email to a VC and be like, hey, this is my idea, can I get some money? They always want a reference. They want to make sure that people they trust in you. So it's about connecting into those networks. In Toronto, probably the best way to connect with that first layer is probably the meetups that are happening. There's a lot of meetups that are happening in Toronto, and there's some very interesting people that show up. They may not be the most obvious people in that meeting saying, hey, come talk to me, but there's definitely a lot of people who have started companies who have VC connections that would go up to them, and if you explain your idea, they might give you really good feedback, and they may also say, hey, keep in touch and let me know how your idea pans out. And those are the people that would eventually refer you to someone who may invest in your company. So I would definitely say if you have a good idea, start networking, go to the meetups, and then also try to vet your idea through people that have done that before. And everyone who started a company knows how hard it is to start one, and they're always willing to help you out.
So Dilshan actually talked about the meetups. I think that's a great idea, great avenue. I know a couple of friends of mine and even myself have used LinkedIn as a medium. That's another avenue you can use for people who are shy. But you can always meet people through LinkedIn because there are LinkedIn forums as well. Plus you can always have the opportunity to connect with them one-on-one and, you know, buy them a coffee and speak to them about experiences. But I think it's important to also hone down exactly the kind of demographic you want to go for. So if you are interested in the business analysts, that area or avenue, then try to target someone in that realm. Or if you want to look out for a network engineer working in the financial sector, maybe you might want to target RBC or Scotiabank and people from that area to kind of get their expertise or get their journey stories and things like that. I found what was also really, really good was just trying to put yourself out there, going through mentoring forums, whether you're just signing up to be a mentee or trying to get experience, looking at opportunities even outside that are not computer science related, maybe an interest that you have. So I like to bike and I like to run a lot, so I join a lot of running groups, a lot of cycling groups, and I meet a lot of people there who have a lot of overlap with my career, and sometimes that's a really good avenue too.
Okay, so those are things you enjoy doing anyway. And
Exactly.
There are benefits to your
Yeah,
career.
if you have a beer group or a wine group, then go for it as well. I think it's really being open-minded, and if you have opportunities to do things that are outside your job description, go for it, because you never know where it might take you and who you will meet And sometimes, there have been opportunities 4 or 5 years down the line, and I have an email coming down to me like, hey, I remember you did that great piece of work, that great presentation. I think I would like to recommend you for so-and-so things. Value relationships also. Even if you have one bad meeting, that can be sometimes quite detrimental. So make sure your relationships with people are always very, very solid and strong. Keep in touch with people. I think people always remember the connections and the emotions that go with it, because we're all human in that sense. One thing that really helped me a lot was really just listening to feedback and advice, and a lot of people don't do that well enough. And it's important to also have an action plan following that. So if you have feedback, get it in black and white, write it down, and try to have an action plan or a goal towards it. And what else do I have over here? Yeah, and if you identify a weakness that you have, try to work on it. And if you are not very good at communicating, if you're kind of shy, you can join a discussion forum or a Toastmasters group to improve your communication skills, because sometimes those are the people who can help you a lot. And I think, if I haven't said it enough, communications is something that is really, really big in any industry you work in, whether you're going to take it to computer science or anywhere you want to go in life. I think it's really, really important. So if you want to work on your skills, make sure that you have identified your strengths and your weaknesses, and you have an action plan towards it. So I think that I give you like the 2-minute version.
Thank you.
Are we all from sort of a computer science program here, or is it, what kind of diversity? No, so if you, from a computer science point of view, I would highlight 2 things which are quite important. One is, whenever I hire someone, I always look at what kind of other contributions they've had from a public domain point of view. So a GitHub profile where you've contributed or worked on any sort of open source projects, or even projects of your own that you've open sourced. That's a very good opportunity for an employer to assess what kind of competencies you have. So irrespective of what you put on your resume, we would almost always look at the GitHub profile and then say, hey, have you even coded anything in this point of view, right? And the second part is, if you contributed to, say, a very large project, if you are out of college or school and you are waiting on a job, I would say just go and start fixing bugs in very large projects, because someone's going to notice that and hire you. More often than not, a lot of companies have taken ownership of these large projects, and they are sponsoring them basically. So if you go in there and you start fixing things faster than their developers can fix things, it is an obvious thing for them to bring that developer in-house, right? So I know a lot of developers who've just gotten hired purely by contributing to open source projects. And definitely keep in mind that internally at a company, like say in our point of view, if you've taken ownership of a public repository, then we are constantly monitoring who's contributing to that, right? So if I've taken ownership of that, I want 95% of the commits that are going into that project to be coming from my company. So if someone else is beating us to those fixes, beating us towards new ideas, then we want that person to be part of the team. It doesn't matter where you live, what context you are in, we want us to be part of the team. So your GitHub profile is a very good communicator of your skills and competencies. The second part is, if you're going on the most obvious technology questions or programming questions or resource questions, so Stack Overflow, that kind of stuff, and if you are actually asking good questions, that's another great indicator that you're trying to think outside the box, or you're trying to solve things that other people may not be able to even comprehend at that level. So if you're trying to hire someone who is embedded or understanding a certain set of skill sets, or more importantly, if you cannot contribute but you want to understand things at a higher level, then those questions that you're asking are definitely going to get reviewed at some point. And a lot of them have reputation. So someone would be like, hey, that's a very, very obvious question, so I'm not going to give you any credit for that. But a lot of those platforms would say, hey, that's an awesome question, I'm going to answer it for you. So one, you gain knowledge. Second, I'm going to give you credit for asking such a good question, right? It's not the most low level question that you could have asked. So that is again a good indicator of whether you're matured towards employability. So those two are really, really important things.